The Chemung County Sheriff's Office has recently been awarded a Community-Oriented Policing Services Grant. It's known as the COPS Grant. It's noted as Operation Take Back the Streets. This was awarded to us through the U.S. Department of Justice. This grant will allow the Chemung County Sheriff's Office to collaborate with its law enforcement partners. I'm going to do that, you guys won't be able to hear me. In Chemung County to ensure the safety and quality of life of its citizens. The grant will allow for funding to help enhance this collaboration through training, intelligence sharing, and enforcement efforts. In light of the recent increase in shootings throughout the county and other crimes plaguing our community, this award could not have come at a better time. Given the significant constraints to many of the law enforcement budgets as a result of the COVID-19, this funding will allow us to better collaborate with our law enforcement partners to combat these issues. Through the utilization of this grant, we will be targeting high crime areas within the county, focusing on drug interdiction, hotel interdiction, human trafficking interdiction, warrant details, as well as identifying other locations of high crime or violent activity. It is important that the community know that law enforcement agencies within our community, within our county specifically, work collaboratively on a regular basis. However, when grants such as these are received, it allows us to better allocate our resources and personnel without financially burdening the taxpayers or significantly impacting any one agency's overtime budget. This grant benefits every agency in the county, not just ours. Although we were the requesting source, the monies awarded will be utilized for every agency personnel that participates in these details. Oftentimes, grants are requested by law enforcement for a variety of reasons, but in a lot of cases are not awarded due to multiple agencies applying for the same money source. In this case, we would like to thank the county exec, Congressman Tom Reed, and the Chemung County Legislature for their assistance with the application and approval of this grant. We are fortunate to have such strong law enforcement support from each of these individuals mentioned. It should also be noted that this grant would not be possible if each one of the men standing behind me had not sent a letter of support through their agencies, showing our collaboration and interest in seeking this jointly. Each one of us is committed to doing the best we can to ensure that the citizens of this county are safe. The monies allocated through this grant will be will provide us with opportunities to conduct various details through next summer. So it's not just limited to a month or two. This is a year-long grant. So the timing of this will allow us to finish up the remainder of this summer, the hot months, and take us right into next summer, which should be beneficial to everybody. We of course will be monitoring the success of this grant, and we'll be reapplying for future grants as well to hopefully maintain that money source. So I would allow anybody else to come up and say a few words. Then of course if you guys have any questions, we'd be more than happy to answer them.
Chief Joe Kane from the Elmira Police Department. I just briefly wanted to say thank you to the Sheriff's Department and Sheriff Schramm for spearheading this effort to get this grant. It couldn't have come at a better time for the Elmira Police Department. We were riddled with problems over the weekend and continuing into early this week with shooting incidents and gun violence, and it's simply unacceptable. With the atmosphere of police reform, it's really time for us to focus on police work with the community's help and address these violent acts that are occurring. We encourage the community to report suspicious conditions, gatherings of people that we think are suspicious in nature or may involve this gun violence. We've had shootings in the middle of daytime. So please contact us, let us know if you're seeing things. Hopefully this grant will allow us to spearhead an effort to try to make the community safer, and we can take this community back. Thank you.
So that's the crux of the grant, and what our intentions are with regard to the utilization of the monies awarded through it. We've had a great collaborative working relationship with all the agencies within this county, so I think this is just an awesome opportunity for us to kind of capitalize on that, get some free monies, if you will, and hopefully utilize it accordingly and have an impact for our community. You guys have any questions? Or?
Is there, I don't know
Yep, the grant was awarded, it was $100,000. So, but it's gotta be broken up. There are certain, like any grant that we receive or anybody gets, there are certain restrictions. You have to allocate so much for overtime, so much for outreach to the community. We have to do information sharing on a regular basis with our law enforcement partners, as well as there's some funding for, you know, educational information or pamphlets to be distributed through the community. But a bulk of that is utilized for overtime so we can put the men and women out in the streets where they need to be.
Will you be hiring any more staff members in the future with this grant, you know, like paying out, so you won't have to run into as much overtime anymore?
Right. Unfortunately, this grant is not designed to hire new personnel. So it's strictly to use in the capacity of which it's designed, and that's just to enhance what you already have, to get out there and spend some extra time out in the streets without taxing your overtime budget.
You know, you touched upon that, about this, but, you know, with the string of shootings recently, obviously it was not for that, but you talked about how it comes at a great time. How much more meaningful is it that it comes at this time where you can really, you know, kind of target those areas?
Well, I'm going to kind of defer to the chief because they seem to have had a little bit more of a problem with that recently, so I'll let him address it. I'm sure it's going to have a lot of impact for their agency, but the law enforcement community in general, it's very important. But want to expound on that?
What was the question again? What were you looking for?
You know, you just touched on it before, but, you know, just specifically, you know, coming at this time, you know, with, you know, a couple of, you know, shootings over the weekend and stuff like that, just how much more meaningful is it that, you know, it comes at this time where you can kind of really use this to focus on those problems?
For example, over the weekend, we were bringing in personnel to deal with the issues that we had. On Tuesday, we had put out special details with several personnel doubled up in cars to focus on these target areas. Last night, we had a special detail with several investigators, several patrolmen, several agencies were involved, supported by everybody here. And we were organizing that. This came at about the same time we were organizing that detail. So I could not tell you how beneficial this is to the community at the time that it came and what we're going to be able to do with it and hopefully accomplish. It's just not acceptable what's going on in our community right now.
Awesome, thank you. I'm good. Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Thank you guys very much. We appreciate it.